It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here. Good news, bad news. No Barnett Bain today is the bad news. But the good news is I have a wonderful friend, a mentor, a colleague who is a friend of the show, who's been on the show before, sitting in today for Barnett. And so I'd like to welcome Gabriel Nossovitch. For those of you who don't know Gabriel, he is one of the founders of WorldWorks. WorldWorks in the United States, WorldWorks Mexico, Chile Works, and he's a major corporate trainer, the Nossovitch Group, which is a company I work for as well. But he's a mentor to me personally. So I've had the great opportunity to train with him and to learn just so much. And I'm also pleased to call him a friend. So welcome to the show, Gabriel.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you back.
Excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm excited for the conversation that you and I have and the quality of conversation we have, and to share that with our audience. Because, you know, on the drive up here, we were speaking about so many things in a way that I really want to offer that to the audience. Because, you know, there's a connection that we have that allows us to speak. I don't know what the word is. Maybe it's just frankly, you know, an honesty to cut through. Because I mean, you know, one of the things about what we do in the transformational leadership, you know, that we both we participate to Association of Transformational Leaders. We're part of this community. There's a way that we can almost get the rawness can get diffused because of what we know, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, we tend to hang out with a lot of experts, and it's great to be an expert, and we're both experts in our own right. Mm-hmm. What I like about our relationship is that we put the expert down. You know, it's actually something we've been talking about almost as a theme on this show, like, can I put down my expert and have a more real, frank, honest conversation? And that's what I'm looking forward to today.
Fantastic. Yeah, because one of the things I notice is since we spend so much of our times teaching, we tend to engage other people in conversations to show them what it is that we know. But when you get a bunch of people together that are mostly teaching in their lives, they're not listening to each other because everybody wants to tell the other what they know.
Yeah, well, we're identified with the role as teacher, and yet, you know, you and I both know, because again, this honesty is like, yeah, but what's the question? What's the quality of the question? What's the sincere I don't know? And I mean, for this community and even our audience, you know, I want to ask a question that nobody gets to answer, you know, like, because I mean, look, answers are cheap and easy. I got them. Yeah. You know, it's like facts. Like, let me find a fact. Oh, right. That's not helpful. Let's find a mystery.
That's right. That's right. What is the question that will keep us really diving into what we don't know and explore there? Instead of launching somebody into starting to explain everything they figured out. That's it.
Yeah. So, you know, the questions are things like, how do I connect more deeply? You know, how do I you listened to last week's show. I know you did, because you listen to every show, but maybe not every show, but at least last week's show. And that first priority, that idea, what's my first priority? And I think for me, it's to be loving. You know, it's like, whenever I get thrown, it's like, can I come back to that first priority? You know, loving of myself, you know, compassionate, understanding, and then extending that out, you know,
other people. Yeah.
Because there's something about the expert that bothers me in my own experience when I'm playing the expert. Okay. You know, it's okay. It's okay that I do it sometimes, but there's a more generous expression of me when I can put my expert down.
Right. It doesn't allow us to listen when we are launching into having other people understand what we figured out.
Well, and it goes back to connect. And the listen is such a part of connect. It's like, how do I connect more deeply?
Exactly.
So, not to have an answer, but hey, maybe putting down the expert is a way to connect more deeply.
You know, you and I were, I think you were at the meeting where a good friend of ours, Marcia Martin, just started to pour water onto a glass that was already full. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Oh, you weren't there?
I didn't see that one.
Okay. It was such a visual and easy and wonderful way of showing it. She took 2 glasses of water and then started pouring one glass onto the other, but this one was already full.
Yeah.
And then it just started spilling over and making a mess, right?
Yeah.
And she said the only way that this glass of water can receive what this one has is if we allow ourselves to drink from it. So she took a sip and then created enough room to be able to contain the water that was coming from the other glass. It was such a beautiful visual
in
love that moment.
Yeah.
Because I often see that people are listening from a place of, how is it that I'm going to make what they're saying fit into what I already know?
Big time.
Instead of just allowing some revelation, something new to come into the space.
Yeah, well, the space, that's the language, because it's the space for something new to come in.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's a quality. I know from, again, working with you, very intimately, folks. We've trained together. You're my mentor in the training, in the corporate training, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for you. And I'm learning. I've learned so much from working with you and watching you do your work, that it's really in the space we create.
Yeah.
The space between us. That's where we have, a generous intention, which is the space between us, that we can fill it with something. And again, this, what am I willing to risk? Or what do I have to risk if I'm going to create that space? And again, I got to give up my knowing if I'm going to learn something here.
That's right. And even an agenda.
Yeah.
And so here's a question, an open question. I don't have the answer to it, but since we're playing this way.
I love it. Let's play this game.
Let's play this way. I have noticed that in order for me to be spacious and hold space for, as you and I talk, the field and what wants to be revealed and what wants to happen, I need to come into the field without an agenda. Meaning I can't have an agenda. I have to be agenda free. But here's the great question.
Yeah.
Agenda free does not mean without an intention.
Yes, this is a critical distinction.
So that's the distinction that I think it would be cool to explore, because someone or I may confuse sometimes what it means to be agenda free, but also have a clear intentionality.
Yeah.
So my intention can be to be spacious enough to allow the field to reveal something, and something to resolve itself, for trust to come into the space, or for people to access or open their hearts and like that, but without an agenda. So how is opening people's hearts not an agenda, right?
Yeah.
So what's the distinction between having an agenda and having an intention?
So I think it can get very tricky. I think it's one of those things that when you say what wants to be revealed here, it brings to mind a kind of humility, right? Again, almost the premise of this show, at least so far, is what's the question that's expansive enough that something can be revealed in it, right? That something can be exposed or explored. And then the for me, intention always quality driven. So, for example, connection, which is the first thing we start with. I want to connect more deeply. Yeah. So if that's my intention, it's going to create a context within which I got to keep moving. Yeah. Because there's always a deeper opportunity. So there's a quality of my listening, and there's a quality of my response, and a quality of my genuine care and the thoughts that come up, and are they and if I offer a thought, is it of service to this connecting, or am I trying to be right again?
Right.
Because I think that slippery slope is those little agendas that come in.
Right.
Look, I'm comfortable being an expert.
Right. Yeah.
How do I put down my shtick?
So how about, see, we weren't going to go into answers, but this just came up to me right now as a possibility. Let's explore this. What about agenda has more to do with you being invested in a particular outcome that serves you? Right.
Well, and it serves the small story you,
or it serves a small story of you.
Yes.
Right. And having a clear intention to hold the space for what wants to be revealed would be more around, honoring your prime directive or whatever it is that your first
priority. First prime directive. It doesn't matter.
Your first priority.
Yeah. Like primary orientation.
Like being a loving human being
yes.
that facilitates the coming into being of what's good and true and loving or something like that.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't feel like it's an agenda. It's more an authentic expression of who I am as the holder of the space here.
I love that.
And an agenda is more like, I want them to like me, or I want them to come out this way, and I want them to be excited about this or that, and inspire them in this way or that way, or get them to do this, right?
This is a quality in your work that I really adore. And you and I have had this conversation because I remember, now this is going back, this is actually when we were doing the training in Vancouver, and we were afterwards kind of debriefing in your hotel room. We're sitting there,
right.
and I had a couple questions about how you got to certain moments, and you kept saying, I don't know, which on one level was very frustrating, but on another level was really exhilarating, because you were saying, like, every time I try to like put it in a bottle and make it formulaic,
yes,
I trip.
Yes.
Right? Trip over trying to get it right or trying to get the same result I got last time or whatever.
Exactly. You have to conceptualize it, understand it, and then it's no longer spirit. It's no longer the essence of it because you made it into a thing.
Yes.
And when you make a piece of moving art into and try to encapsulate it and make it into a thing, then it loses its essential quality.
Yeah, and it loses its art. I mean, it can be very crafty. It can be a great performance.
Yes.
You've got lots of craft.
Yeah.
But at some point, and I'm not saying we don't have to learn craft. I think we do.
Yeah.
But at some point, we have to put the craft down.
Right.
Enough craft already.
Exactly.
Right? It's like the musician who, is a great sort of natural musician. They go take theory classes and they can't play anymore.
Exactly.
Because now it becomes a head trip.
Right.
And a control game.
Yeah. And then you have to forget everything that you learned in the craft and have that in the background so that you can actually play with the moment. Otherwise, you're not present. You're operating from memory, and you're not right here, right now.
Yeah. So what? I don't know. I mean, I guess. Again, I don't want to draw a quick conclusion. We've got a long show here, but again, it just comes back to some real core things of present. Clear enough with a level of intent, a quality. Not an outcome. We just know that we want to connect.
Right.
We want to play. Those are frequencies that'll take us somewhere.
Exactly.
And look, along the way, we may lose, some of the magic we wanted to create. And at the end, we may go, oh, that isn't what I wanted. But that's the risk.
Yeah.
We could blow it. We could say something wrong.
Yeah. But I think there's a way to ground ourselves. There's a centered ground. Good point. Yeah. There's a centered groundedness. There's a place where you can go, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and trust. Trust, I think, comes in a big way. Trust that what wants to happen will eventually emerge.
Yeah.
And then be in service to that.
Yeah.
And trust that if whatever shows up is really messed up, as you and I saw.
Yeah. We had a rough ride on that.
We had a rough ride at some point, and it required, what was missing from the space at that point was humility. And as the creator, source, and holder of the space, it demanded that of me in that moment. I don't know if you recall.
Yeah, no, it really did. That was what I was asking you about, actually, because that was the amazing part, is how when everything seemed to be going wrong, and I felt the inclination.
And you saw my face going, what is going on here?
What is going on here?
And then this is what that's the part.
And I think I asked you, how did you stay with it? How did you just stay with it?
Yeah.
And keep letting it get crazier? Because it got crazy.
Yes.
I don't want to go into details because obviously it's a training and it's all confidential. But to just suffice to say that a lot of resistance came up, and a lot was revealed. We didn't talk about the company, so I think I'm safe now too. Within the company culture,
exactly,
that had to do with mistrust.
Yes,
and so what this space that you create and this training does is it naturally draws out all that stuff. It's going to come out.
Yes,
and that's what happened. So I want to come back and talk about this. That again, it's you like to call it the protagonist, is the part of us that gets things moving. And you've made that distinction that's part of our job in the training, and what we do is stirring up the pot intentionally, with the intent to allow for it to be resolved in a safe and nurturing way. That's what I want to come back with. And I also want to talk about how corporate training has true transformational potential after we take this break. So stay with us. We'll be right back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Great.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with my guest co-host, friend, Gabriel Nossovitch. And before we went to break, Gabriel, I was setting up how our job in some way is to draw out what needs to be revealed to everyone in the room, how the training space. Now, we're talking specifically about corporate training, which I think is different than public training. There's so much about corporate training I like, which I'll get to after we sort of cover this first piece. But just that thing of wanting to get in and reveal to everyone, it's sort of like the 1,000-pound gorilla. It's the tension that everyone knows exists. And the work of the training is to stir that up. So I want you to kind of jump in there. And it really harkens back to the first thing, which is, what's the question that's going to stir up the most juice for sort of the greatest good, right? That's my personal experience and my personal experience of the training, which is so much of my stuff got revealed that needed to be revealed, even though I was on the training team.
Right. And for me as well.
And for you as well.
All the time.
That is such a big, again, I've seen so many trainers, Gabrielle, who do the same shtick. It's like, and on the radio, a lot of people come on with their talking points and they do the same talking points. It's like our show could have been any show. Right. There's something about that. Honestly, I get a little offended. I'm like, really? So again, one of your geniuses is you purposefully throw a monkey wrench in the middle.
That's right. And I experienced myself being in the trenches with everybody else.
Yes.
And at the same time, holding the space and making it safe for everybody. So I think that's the play that I love, because it's, on the one hand, okay, yeah, I will keep this space as safe as I possibly can. And at the same time, I will make it as raw and dangerous as you can possibly imagine.
Folks, let me just say. Yeah.
Because nothing is off limits here in terms of revealing what everybody knows and is not willing to say that gets in the way of our greatest possibility. So, someone will react. And so my job at that point is to not be caught in the reaction, not to counter-react, but actually to expose the reaction and where it comes from. And then that will cause someone else to react over here. And then I'll start, helping them link up. Well, what triggered you about what this person said? And let's look at that. And then suddenly it just, like, there's a whole pattern being revealed that is part of the culture of the company.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like a very beautiful way of everybody's playing a part and we're all plugged in. Right. We're all plugged into each other's stories here and creating a pattern that sometimes is not the best in terms of producing the results that we want for the company.
And in terms of even our language, we have a mutual friend, Kim Kaisa, who I work with now and you work with as well. She's part of the team. And she was saying she was at Enron at one time. She was at Enron, the electricity company, the power company in Texas that, of course, we all know imploded and exploded and did whatever they did. And she said, there was a lot of slogans around that place, a lot of slogans about integrity. And there was big shadow play. And, it's interesting because I have several corporate clients, in part thanks to you. And one of my companies, I was working with the CEO of the company, and we were talking about, early on, I think it was maybe our first session, second session, about the culture that he'd created. And he was sort of complaining. And I had read his mission statement just that day. And I was like, well, you guys stand for this, that, and the other. And he was like kind of looking, I do it over Skype, so he's kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? And so then I said, well, it's in your mission statement. He's like, mission statement. So I pulled up the mission statement on the website and read it back to him. He's like, oh my God, for whatever I'm paying you, this is worth the price of admission. Because we did that like 5 years ago and we lost it. So, and the reason I bring this up is, again, what we organize around is a sense of vision, is a sense of intention. Like what are the values? What are the values, the expressed values that we're up to? And then how do we own when we're not in alignment with that? It's this kind of really interesting balance, because that's the work. We leave the trainings. I'm talking now about the excellence in leadership in trainings that we've done together and some of these other trainings, where we leave it with a sense of that's who we say we are. And what was reflected was how often we're not that. Not to shame us, but just to call us to do the work. Right. Whatever it is. Like, that's to remind us, get us back in a frame of reference. Like, that's what we're going for.
Right.
That's a powerful piece.
Yeah. And I love, using the be, do, have model in terms of defining. So I have done work with companies where we get a bunch of people together, top executives, and we say, so let's just first define who we are. Let's just look at the be.
Yeah.
Who is it that we say we are? And then what do we do in order to, how is that being manifesting in the world? And then as a result of what we do, what is the end result? What do we have?
Well, that's the orientation.
Yeah.
So, folks, this is really important, because most companies, most people come from what do I want, the have, and then what do I have to do to get it? Not who do I need to be. Yeah. And we know that the field or the universe, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't care what you want. It responds to who you're being.
Right.
And so that orientation to say, okay, so who am I really being in this moment? And then that can be seen in the kinds of outcomes. And really from the sort of shadow play perspective, all the ways that what's showing up is a reflection of what's denied or repressed or hidden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not to make wrong the shadow play, because I think we all have our shadows, but to actually come together in an environment that is safe for us to reveal what gets in the way that is unconscious.
Yeah.
And then to, allow for that to be completed.
Yeah, and keep organizing back around what the offer is, what the generous possible intention or
what the basic values that who we say we are.
Yeah.
We're declaring ourselves to be.
Yeah.
As an organization, yeah.
It's powerful. So the impact for me, there's a couple pieces. Coming to see, and it actually was in Vancouver, same training, where my own story about who I am, what was revealed, because I changed gears at one point, went from being on the facilitating team to participating in one of the activities I had never done before. And it's so interesting. It's so perfect, because the climate of that culture pricked in me, triggered in me some of the less constructive elements of my personal experience, namely my competitiveness, in a very sort of ruthless way. And seeing that reflected back in this compassionate, loving environment caused me to kind of, lose my breath and go, wow.
Yeah.
So what am I really up to? And that's when I recommitted to collaboration and said, this is what I want to put out. This is the world I want to create and generate.
Right.
It was September 13th, 2012. I made a declaration about the world I create.
Yes. It was very, very powerful, by the way.
It still is.
Very moving.
It lives as a powerful declaration, a statement of here's who I am, here's what I'm up to in the world. And it calls me to task. Mm-hmm. That's, by the way, the power of a declaration, is that it's calling us to step into it more fully.
And I remember it came from a place where you were deeply touched by what you were saying and who you were declaring yourself to be.
And it's a place of, I say I want to connect, and then I watch all the ways that I don't.
Right.
And that's a moment in time to say, first priority, prime objective, ground, center, refocus. What's this really about? Because I don't think it's a straight line. I just think the humility factor that makes it all possible is what wants to be revealed is to integrate. For me, integrity means integrated. It's where I see the parts of me that are showing up in ways that aren't in alignment with what I say I want, or who I want to say I am, the B part of me, and then owning them.
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned from you, because I actually organically saw it happening again and again, but then actually you pointed out that actually embracing with compassion those aspects that are revealed to us that are lower frequencies because of some incompletion that may have happened that occurred in our lives, and to meet them there and to actually embrace them and to have some compassion for ourselves is critical to just allowing them to dissolve from from bringing us down.
Because I think the tendency, again, it's part of the nature of the shadow component, is to deny and reject them. And so what we end up going towards is wanting to fix or solve, or even sometimes the language clear can be a trip cord. Like I'm trying to clear it. Well, what if I'm just trying to own it, integrate it, and be with it in a way?
Rather than fixing.
Yeah, because the fixing even
makes it wrong. And what you resist persists. And
that's it.
And so if you make it wrong, then you're at the effect of it, and then you make it bigger.
It just locks the limitation in place, right? So even the word change sometimes, I'm willing to change in service to something, but I'm not going for change.
Right.
Because again, that's setting myself up saying there's some part of me that's not okay.
Yeah, change is about resistance.
Yes.
If you want to change something, you're not okay with the way that it is.
That's it.
And creating, on the other side, requires you to empty up or clear space for you to be able to create within that space. So I like to make that distinction between changing and creating. Anytime you're about changing something, you're in resistance to the way that that it was or that you think it is.
Huge.
And you're not really providing space for what wants to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting because with both the companies I'm working with right now, going back to their mission statement, one of them is so out of touch with their mission statement, but that's our work. And the other, we were just talking today, I was working with their VP of sales, because just in his sales team, I'm like, well, what's your vision? What's your mission? He's like, we don't really have one. I said, well, it's time to get to work. And we're actually scheduling to go in and do some training with them. Because they clearly haven't delineated that. They've got lots of haves that they want, outcomes that they're looking for, but the core values, the reason why, it's, I call it the why behind the what. It's not what you want, it's why you want what you want, right? It's not, so, again, it's not about selling widgets.
Right.
There's got to be a soul's purpose.
Right.
So again, in our community, there's a big conscious business, conscious capitalism. What's the soul of business? What's the opportunity? And that's really where I want to go with this conversation is that, again, how many powerful teachings you've blessed me with. I remember this was actually in Chicago. We were training a company and you pulled me aside and you said, because I had said something that had a piece of unfinished business. And you reflected back when I said it, and you said, Freeman, if you're going to really be in the intention of service for these people, you have to give up your contempt for corporations. Do you remember telling me this?
No. Tell me more.
Well, okay. So then again, it was like a punch in the gut. But I mean, you said with love. It just was like, oh, you're right. I have a story that doesn't serve my intention about the nature of corporations or something that comes from kind of, you know what it comes from? The club. This is not entirely, I'm not committing to this 100%, but part of the consciousness club is a kind of arrogance that we're better than them and that they are the masses, right? That are manipulated by the corporation, and how nonsense that story is. I can feed it. And a lot of our friends who, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but some of the movies that are coming out, it's all this, it's well-intended, but it ends up drawing a line that doesn't serve the purpose. Do you know what I'm talking about right now?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, are you really about, what you're saying to me is, are you really about that intention? Because here's a magnificent opportunity to serve. but you have to put down your, in this case, judgment, because you can't judge and love at the same time, Freeman.
Right.
If you're going to be loving, then be loving.
Yeah.
Your judgments come in, all they do is cloud that.
That's right.
It's the same as playing the expert, right?
Yeah. And it actually trusting that your own frequency, where you're vibrating, is actually impacting the field in which you're elevating, or you're, let's just not use a hierarchical, but you're actually bringing others into that same vibration. So you can't hold them as, they're singing a different tune when you're teaching them this tune.
So this is again one of those powerful pieces. Again, I've been in other trainings, right? And I've been on both sides, either in the training or on the facilitating team. I love the work we do in between the segments. So when we work together, the whole team, we sort of gather up at various moments, and we have our own process that's going on. So again, we're leading the group. In this case, it's maybe 20 to 30 executives in the trainings I've been discussing. But in between, maybe there's 4 or 5 of us on the team. We get together and we're getting worked.
Yes.
And we have our own process. So I need to take another break. When we come back, again, I want to go back to how there's no arrival point. There's the nature of the process involves an element of risk and an element of personal, that we take it all personal and that we own it, and that there's a real benefit in that.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're just teaching something, we're in the teaching that we're being worked by.
Yes. And we got to be whatever it is that we're promoting as an idea.
Yes.
In the moment. So as a group of people who are creating the field together, as not as the participants, but as the facilitators, we have to be being that and let the field work us.
We're going to come right back, talk about this after these messages. Stay with us here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Freeman Michaels here. Thanks for staying with us. I'm here with my dear friend, Gabriel Nossovitch, friend, mentor, colleague. We were speaking before the break about how we have to be in the process that we're teaching, so that it is an expression of our work. That is not something where we just play expert, that we actually allow ourselves to be worked by the work that we're doing, which makes it authentic, makes it real. It gives it a very in-the-moment, organic, so much of trainings, presentations, people in our world, it becomes so rote. And so again, what I've been so drawn by and why I love the work that I've done with you is this element where it's so critical that I throw myself into the process.
Yeah. One excellent example is on that very last day of one training that we were together, when in the process of grounding us, someone raised the concern about not violating the trust in the space. And I wasn't really concerned that something that we're about to do was really in violation of the trust, right? Do you remember? And
Vaguely.
I said, oh, don't worry about that. I can handle it. I will, and I said something around, I will help manage the conversation around it. And when I said it, it really didn't resonate as pure in my heart, right? And as you well know, the moment we stepped into the room and this happened, it just went all over the place, and people went crazy about the dynamics of what was going on in the room, and control and mistrust and so forth. And I went and I listened to it and I facilitated, and then I realized, you know what? How am I holding the space here? I'm still incomplete myself with having said something that doesn't resonate with my higher vibrational space. So I actually revealed it to the whole group.
Yeah.
And I said, this is what I said. And it's not okay with me because it's pretty arrogant.
I totally remember this. That's so brilliant. Go on.
And And you could sense that the moment I revealed what I said in the grounding, right before the participants came in, and I actually apologized. And I said, but I'm grateful for it, because on the other hand, all the stuff that was under the surface got revealed, and there's an issue here that we need to address. So I apologize for my arrogance, and on the other hand, I'm grateful for how it played out, so that now we can actually all be talking about this.
That's exactly right.
And in that moment, you could feel this tension just go,
thank God.
And it got released.
Yeah, thank God.
And then we had a very healthy conversation around it.
Yeah.
But that's an example of how you have to be willing to be worked by the space that you're creating for something to be revealed. Because sometimes you are, part of what's being triggered in you is part of the process that needs to be exposed, that will trigger something for everybody else there.
And that's so sweet. Again, we have so much personally, I'll just speak for myself. I have so much resistance. When something like that comes up, it's just so interesting how quick I am to slip into personality traits, personal reality, but really adaptive personality traits, the concept of who I am. And what that does is it reflects back who I'm actually being. My conceptual self versus my actualized self. What am I actually doing in the world? And so I've come to really welcome that, welcome the reflection. And again, it's back to the humility. It's back to first priority.
It's humility.
Well, back to first priority. You said it. It's like I had to get from my heart. I had to get back in my heart space. I don't know how you said it, but that's what I'm saying you said a minute ago. My hearing of it is like I got to come back to my own humility to be of service here. Yeah,
and also for me, it's a constant regrounding and awareness of the illusion of control.
Yeah.
Because when I said I can help manage that conversation, it was about control underneath. It was like, don't worry, I can control it. And it's contrary to everything that we do in creating a field for something to be revealed. It's like you don't want to control it. The last thing you want to do is control it.
No.
You want to nurture it. You want to participate in it. You want to take care of it. You want to allow it to expand and grow and serve, but you don't want to control it. And the moment there's an element of you that feels or thinks that you can control it, then it comes back to, give you a slap in the hand.
All
and
right, I'm going to go so different direction here.
Yeah.
This is risky. I have a strong sense, because what you're talking about everything you just said, the qualities of this kind of thinking, and I'm going to relate it strictly to what I'm working with, which is collaboration. Collaboration is a paradigm that is a totally different set of modulators. Like what makes collaboration work is almost the opposite of anything that has to do with hierarchy. So most structures are now built in hierarchy. And we, because we've been conditioned, have a tendency to track back to hierarchy. The feminine quality, because the hierarchy represents the imbalanced masculine. It's this doing, controlling, outcome-driven kind of mentality. And that powerful male or masculine drive to generate outcome is not bad, but it's imbalanced. What the balancing factor is the open, loving space, the feminine qualities that give a context to the doing, right? So one of the things that I'm excited about is I see many women. So this doesn't have to be gender specific, but this is the risk, is I'm going to actually make it a little gender specific. I think guys have a tougher time with this nurturing, space creating. A lot of women do too, especially the ones who have risen in the corporate ranks, because look, they've had to play the paradigm of the hierarchy and the whole disintegrated masculine. But I see so many women who are willing to do the work and create this space. And I wonder if in the new paradigm, which I believe is here, I don't believe collaboration as a paradigm is something I necessarily need to teach. It's something that people innately are ready for culturally. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the biggest offer for companies to be more than the sum of your parts, to grow to something that has this field we create, this space where something magical can come in. That's the greatest gift to everyone concerned, internally and externally. It's the big offer. It's the big story because it's the small story, control. And I wonder, and maybe you have thoughts on this, maybe you don't, where I see the feminine in leadership, men and women, but I see women really, a lot of them really primed to step into this kind of collaborative leadership model. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. One thought that the first thing that comes to mind is that there is a way to actually bring men who are driven and mission-oriented to produce results from their masculine essence perspective into this collaborative space in a way that they're quite tempted to come and play. And here's what I found. As long as they see that the means called collaboration actually produces an outcome that is greater than what they can produce in a hierarchical structure, they're coming to play. Yeah. They're willing to play.
Well, and I've also seen them really relieved. I'm thinking now of the Chicago training, that the men at the end were saying, oh my God, being vulnerable and showing up in this heartfelt way feels so good. So there's a big payoff.
It feels good. And I think that women are not less driven to do. Their mission is more relationship-based, relationship-oriented. Yeah. Right? So, but they're doing a lot. But they're trying to work in that space of how do we make these relationships work so that we produce the result, but ultimately also about producing the result when they're in that space.
But the result organizes more around connection. The result, it's more about the relational piece.
Agency and communion.
Yeah.
I want to be the agent. I want to drive this. I want to drive the bus and take us this place. And for the other side, it's more about let's just collaborate and be together and commune and be in communion as we go wherever it is that we go.
Yeah.
But for when men get, in my experience, when the masculine, or I shouldn't, because they show up in both genders.
Right, of course.
When the masculine shows up and gets this notion that they can actually be more effective in manifesting something that matters to them, that is mission-oriented, through the mechanism called collaboration, they're in.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things that one of my big dreams is to have, CEOs and people that are head of big organizations to realize that your job is really not to produce widgets and sell them and gain more market share and so forth. It is to actually bring together a group of people and create the conditions for every single member of the team to self-actualize.
Totally.
And then when you do that and you actually allow people to be the best expression of who they're meant to be in the world,
your widgets will be off the chart.
Your widgets are off the chart.
Totally.
Once
sales will go nuts.
They go nuts. And your market share and everything, because you got what the real game was all about.
Well, you've seen this. So literally, I mean, I again, we won't name names, but one of the companies I trained with you took them from, their earnings are 10 times what they started at. And they've committed. They've done, they've sent basically everyone through your trainings. And it's an indication of their commitment to building a culture that is bigger than the small story.
That takes care of every single person and makes sure that one of the priority, the prime directive, is to make sure that every single member of our team actually expresses their gift at the highest level and feels fulfilled and self-actualized.
And part of that is people self-organize out.
Exactly. And that's what I love about it is that you're no longer firing people that don't fit. Step out.
They have to.
And then there are people out there that are extremely talented, that are a perfect fit for that culture, who are knocking on your door.
Yeah.
And so it actually self-organizes, and all you have to do is create the space, create the context, create the conversation, create who we are.
And the and part, and be aware of when you're not there. I mean, this is, again, when we come back to the vision. We come back to, because the what is so exciting about the work that I'm going to say we do is, again, it's just, there's such a benefit to enrealment, not enlightenment, but I'm stealing Jeff Brown's language, but enrealment is so rich and juicy and delicious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And what my sense of wanting to be part of something. I loved last week's show when he was talking about a culture of possibility. We want to create a culture where there's a possibility, that we're all enamored with the possibility. It's bigger than any of us individually, that collectively we might share in, realizing, not because we, went for change and, tried to figure it out. We create a space where something could be revealed that was in everyone's highest good. To me, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to play in. That's why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah. Our job is to be happy and
joyful and loving and a little crazy and all the other things.
And having fun. Yeah. And when you can create that space where people are feeling freedom and loving and deeply fulfilled, they will play hard.
Big time. Yeah. And in balance. I mean, again, when we think of how workaholism has been nobilized, we think about all these imbalances that are all part of the push. None of that's required. I always say, don't manage your time, manage your energy. Time will take care of itself. If you really have your priorities aligned, then, and look, it's a tall order, what I'm talking about. Getting your priorities aligned, first priority being loving towards myself and others. You get these things aligned, it doesn't mean you never go off track. You always go off track. The whole story of the plane is off track, 90-something% of the time between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Yeah. Most time it's off course, but there's the modulators. Keep coming back to, well, what are we really doing? Yeah. What are we really going for? Yeah. And in this context, today, we're going for connection. We're going for joy. We're going for fun. And we're going for a deep sense of healing, a deep sense of acceptance that lifts me and lifts everybody else.
Right.
And that's the possibility within the corporation. Yes, there's shadow play. Yes, we saw Enron go nuts with slogans everywhere, big shadow play. But that's okay. That's part and parcel of the other side of it, where a company doesn't have slogans everywhere. They have them deeply held in the fabric of who they are.
Yeah. And getting off course is part of the creative tension.
Yes.
Which I love, because whenever something hits me, like I'm off track, something didn't resonate, something was completely not an expression of who I really want to be in the world, it actually illuminates stuff for me that otherwise I couldn't see. So if we can hold those times when we go off course as also gifts, to be able to, recalibrate.
Well, again, it goes back to, you will be changed by the process.
Yes.
We're not going for change, but we know change is part and parcel of transformation.
Yeah.
And to grow means to change.
Yeah. I like the word transformed by the process, because the transform is shifting shape, right? Is to me not in resistance to the way that it formed before, but actually having space to become something else.
I love that.
Which isn't about resisting the way that it was in the first place.
I love that. So we're going to have to wrap up. I'm so grateful to have the time to hang with you. I mean, I'm grateful because what folks don't know is you live out of town. You came and you stayed the night at my house, and we hung out all day and whatever. And now we're here. So that's the greatest gift, is your friendship and so forth. But I'm really grateful that our audience had the opportunity to spend some time with you and get to know you and get a sense of your brilliant gift in the world.
Thank you so much. I am you've become my brother, my soul brother, Dharma brother, as they say. And it's always so much fun to play with you.
I love it. The circle is expanding. Our family's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Our soul family. Yeah. And for those of you who are part of our soul family, the Cutting Edge Consciousness family, we are grateful that you tuned in. Barnett will be back next week, and we'll have more great shows. So keep tuning in to Cutting Edge Consciousness.